Good afternoon, world historians. It's Dr. Smith here. Again, I'm posting a little bit later than usual this week for this particular video. But the good news is that it's week 5 of the 6-week semester. And believe it or not, everyone is doing great. So this is really encouraging. But I just wanted to make sure, obviously, that everyone was keeping focused as we enter into the week 6 and the deadlines that are coming up. So two things I want to talk about just very briefly today. We'll talk more about this next week. But the first thing I wanted to obviously bring up is the final exam, which is worth the biggest chunk of your final grade, 25% of your final grade of any assignment or piece of work this semester. So I'll just say a couple of things about the final exam. More or less, it's the same format as the midterm exam, but there are three key differences or changes at least. One of which is obviously if you look at the ID section, the list of ID terms on the final exam. This incidentally is available on Canvas files, but there are a lot more or slightly more ID terms than there were on the midterm. So there are 16 terms altogether, I believe. 8 of those terms will actually appear on the final exam paper itself. And again, you'll write 5 responses from the 8, which are kind of winnowed down from the 16. So that's one. Number 2 is there is actually a multiple choice section. There's a multiple choice quiz, which is going to accompany the final exam. And I will have instructions on that next week. But to give you a little heads up, there will be 25 questions, multiple choice, probably out of a choice of 4 options for each question, each worth 2 points. So 25 times 2 is obviously 50. So that's the additional 50 points that are included in the final exam. And then, of course, the third part of that, the third section that's new is actually a bonus question section. There'll be 1 or 2 bonus questions scattered from the readings for this semester. Each of those will be worth 2 points, and those will be added to your final score at the end of the semester. So that's the final exam. We'll talk a little bit more about especially the essay questions on the final exam next week as it relates to the material. But then the second thing I wanted to talk about finally is the formal, if you like, the formal exam or the slightly longer exam, 4 to 5 pages, Word document, 12-point font, double-spaced, due June 26th. So that's coming up. Now, the objective of this assignment is that I wanted to discuss in this essay and help you draw on the kind of connections that we've been learning about and talking about in this class historically, with the kind of stories that you might come across reading, websites or the media. So it's trying to draw these connections. I realize, because it's a 6-week class, there's not a whole lot of room to kind of scaffold these kind of assignments. So what I will say is, one, for this essay, we're looking at journalistic kind of articles which have been written in the last 5 years. So we're talking here anything from, I guess, 2016 to the present. So very recent. But the article itself has to have been written or published in the last 5 years. But it can be about anything from world history, especially from 1500 to the present. The other thing is we're looking here at, kind of popular journal articles or magazine articles, newspaper articles, that kind of thing. We're not looking at academic research papers or conference papers or scholarly resources, things of that nature. So those are good in their own, in their own world. But what we're looking at here is journalistic sources, the kind of stories that you might read without, kind of researching for a history paper. And then drawing that connection, looking at specific themes that can be found in Robert Marx's Origins of the Modern World. And I've listed, I think, 4 themes that we could look at here. Imperialism, which is pretty broad, and globalization, of course, which is even broader. Religion, which is another great theme in world history. And then science and technology. We've been talking a lot about the Industrial Revolution in the discussion this week or the last week. So science, technology, how it's shaped the world, how it's shaping the world. These are the kind of themes I want us to look at and discuss. So I want you to select a article, and if there's any doubt or any question about whether or not this is the right kind of article that you're wanting to find or talk about, the simplest solution is obviously just to email me with a link to the article, or if it's a print article, PDF scan is fine. And then once you've done that, once that's been approved, if there's any doubt, I just want you to write a one-page summary of the article. So try and get that out of the way by way of introduction. Summarize the key points, the key arguments of the article, and talk about how it relates to one of these historical themes or historical topics. And then, to develop that, bring in the origins of the modern world, talk about how that connects to the discussion of history, specifically the discussion of history that we've been reading in our book for this semester, Origins of the Modern World by Robert Marks. And the connection can either be indirect or direct. That is to say, it can be an article which is about the historical topic itself, or it could be an article which has some kind of parallel that you can see with other themes that are discussed by Robert Marks. But whichever it is, whether it's direct or indirect, I want you to actually signpost very clearly to me, the reader, what that connection is. And then finally, just to write a conclusion, come up with a short personal response to the article, talk about what drew you to the article. Don't be afraid to use, I know some professors steer you away from the use of the first person pronoun. I myself do not object. So if you want to use the word I to talk about what drew you to that topic, whether it was something you were interested in or something that you'd recently discovered that sort of sparked your interest and excitement, then feel free to include that. So the whole article should be about, or the whole essay response should be about 4 to 5 double-spaced pages. That's due by the end of this semester, June 26th. So you should be getting your thinking caps on, looking at different sources. And I will try and suggest some ideas next week. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, if you want me to look at any drafts, feel free to reach out to me, smithmd6 at miamioh.edu. And have a great week, everyone. Thanks very much, and keep up the good work. Thanks.